Some conservative bloggers are grumbling about CNN's Sanjay Gupta as Surgeon General, annoyed with his reporting on John McCain's health records, fact-checking his reporting on Reagan's AIDS record. Our fourth story is not that, but now a leading Democrat, Congressman John Conyers, who's asking fellow Democrats to petition President-elect Obama against nominating Dr. Gupta. One reason, Conyers says, questions about Gupta's experience and even medical background, though Gupta is a practicing neurosurgeon, for leading the 6,000 physicians of the U.S. Public Health Service. Conyers saying, quote, clearly it is not in the best interests of the nation to have someone like this who lacks the requisite experience. Conyers also citing the complaints of economist and occasional Countdown guest Paul Krugman, who wrote this week that appointing Gupta is, quote, just another example of a lack of accountability when someone, Gupta in this case, quote, gets something wrong in a socially acceptable way. What did Gupta get wrong? In 2007, he decided to fact-check the Michael Moore documentary Sicko and reported that Moore fudged the facts, that parts of his advocacy for universal health care were, quote, not true. Moore, another occasional guest here, pushed back hard to nobody's surprise, getting Gupta to admit at least one mistake in his first report and another in later discussion of it. Moore also got a lengthy online response from CNN in which the network failed to prove even a single falsehood from Moore. Instead, it quibbled with him about how he selected the data he compared. Joining us right now about this, Chris Hayes, Washington editor of The Nation magazine. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
John Conyers, he's in the House, as I recall. Gupta's confirmation will be in the Senate. What is Conyers doing and why?
So the context for this is single payer and a bill that its proponents call Medicare for All. And John Conyers, along with Congressman Pete Stark from California, they are the two most outspoken advocates for it. Every session they they co-sponsor a bill that would essentially institute something similar, although different in certain crucial ways, to a Canadian single payer style public health system in the United States that would essentially use the current Medicare model and expand it and allow anyone to join Medicare. For Conyers, this is one of the issues that he is most passionate about, for which he advocates most strenuously. And so the context for this is that Gupta going after Moore was on that specific issue. Moore himself, in Sicko, advocates for exactly the kind of national health care program that Conyers feels so strongly about, and I think that's really the sort of the subtext of this.
Huffington Post headline today, banner headline, Dr. No. A contributor from your magazine, Trudy Lieberman, wrote for the Columbia Journalism Review that the Gupta coverage had glossed over significant problems with McCain's health care plan. When you add that to Conyers and Krugman and Moore, are Gupta's potential problems with the left significant? And given the nature of the process by which he will be confirmed, do they matter?
Well, I guess I should take the second question first, which is, unfortunately, I don't think they will. I mean, partly because in the realm of the amount of fights there are going to be over health care, I think this ranks fairly low down in everyone's priorities. The political capital people are going to want to expend is on the actual legislation when health care reform rolls around. So I don't think there's going to be a massive rallying around using political capital to block this specific, somewhat symbolic nomination, although he does have a significant role in sort of overseeing these 6,000 physicians. I do think that there are problems that people on the left are starting to express, and if you monitor the blogs and you read commentators like my colleague Trudy Lieberman, obviously Paul Krugman, that people are really, they haven't forgotten that Michael Moore moment.
Paul's big problem is also fascinating by itself, that there's the Washington culture in here, that if you're on the inside, you're nice, you're presentable, doesn't matter if you were wrong on health care, deregulation, the Iraq War, you will get the big advisor job, while those, crazy left-wing nuts who were actually right in the facts and right in their predictions are frozen out. Is that a critique? Is Gupta the poster doctor for this?
That's exactly right. And in fact, that, I think, if there's a central frustration that people, I think, on the left feel about what the sort of pieces falling into place around the transition, it is that while a lot of the kind of old ways of thinking about governance and a lot of the old ways of thinking about the economy specifically and the role of government are crumbling around us, it's basically the same sort of establishment permanent governing class that's going to kind of lead us into this new era. And so there's a real frustration because the Washington establishment has this tendency to to demarcate very strongly what's within the acceptable bounds of discourse and what's outside of it. And that moment with Gupta and Moore, a lot of people felt like was one of those moments in which the establishment was demarcating single payer and Michael Moore as somehow outside the bounds of the discussion we're having. And that's what really frustrates people.
Chris Hayes of The Nation, as always. Great thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Keith.